Have you ever wondered why, even in the darkest moments, some people manage to bounce back while others give up? What makes a person keep going when all seems lost? Is there a secret to persevering in the midst of pain, fear, and uncertainty? Today I want to share something with you that could change your life. Imagine that every challenge you face is like a storm. You feel the wind, the rain, and the pressure. But what if I told you that there is a strength within you that can weather any storm? And that this strength doesn't depend on what's around you, but on what's inside you. In this video, we're going to talk about what it really means to persevere, not on the basis of human strength, but on the basis of divine confidence. I want you to understand how every difficult moment can be a stepping stone to something greater. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to show you how to turn your greatest challenges into stepping stones to a life of peace, purpose, and victory. What you're about to hear could change the way you face your problems forever. Have you ever felt like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders? As if each step is harder than the last, and the idea of going on is almost unbearable? In those moments when everything seems to be falling down around you, where do you find the strength to carry on? I want you to know that even in the most intense storms, there is an unshakable strength available to you. And that strength doesn't come from what you can touch or see, but from something much deeper. Imagine a traveler crossing a scorching desert. He's tired, his feet hurt, and his thirst seems unbearable. But instead of giving up, he looks to the horizon and sees something greater, the promise of an oasis. Like this traveler, you have the ability to keep going, even when it seems you have no energy left to take the next step. The secret is not to avoid the desert, but to remember that it is not the final destination. The truth is that many people give up before they realize that they are closer to victory than they imagined. When I was in Palestine, I saw people facing extreme difficulties, sickness, poverty, rejection. Each of them believed they were alone, abandoned in their pain. But as they opened themselves to something greater, they discovered a strength that sustained them. I was not only beside them, but within them, giving them the assurance that they were not facing their struggles alone. You may be asking yourself, but how can I find that strength within myself? I feel so small in the face of my problems. The answer lies not in the strength of your arms or the logic of your mind, but in the surrender of your heart. It is when you recognize your limitations and trust in the greater power that sustains all creation, that strength begins to emerge. Perseverance is not something you do alone. It is the fruit of a partnership between you and that which is most divine. So remember, when everything seems to be falling apart, don't just look at the ruins. Look within and see what the Father has in store. The power you seek is not lost. It is waiting for you to recognize it. And as you take the next step with faith, you will find that each step forward becomes easier, more enlightened, because you are no longer walking alone. When we learn to trust, we realize that even falls have something to teach us. Have you ever noticed that life is never a straight line? There are times when everything seems to be in place, and then suddenly we're surprised by a fall. Whether it's choices that didn't work out or situations beyond our control, we all stumble at some point. But what defines who we are is not the fact that we never fall, but the ability to get up, to choose to go on, even when it seems impossible. As I have walked among you, I have witnessed many falls. I saw men who had lost everything, from their possessions to their dignity, women who felt crushed by an unjust world, and children who carried more pain than their age could bear. What separated those who found peace from those who remained in suffering was a simple but powerful choice: the decision to stand up, not to allow the fall to be the end of their story. One of the stories that struck me was that of a man who, after years of painstakingly building his livelihood, lost everything in a single night because of a storm. He came to me in despair, saying he didn't know how to go on. I asked him, "What do you have left in you that no storm can take away?" He was silent for a moment and answered, "My will to live." And it was that spark of will that helped him, little by little, to rebuild everything, even more completely than before. Getting up after a fall doesn't mean ignoring the pain or pretending it didn't happen. On the contrary, it means recognizing what hurt, learning from it, and finding strength in the lesson the experience taught. Sometimes the fall itself reveals a courage in us that we didn't even know we had. It's like gold that must be refined through fire. Suffering doesn't define who you are, but your response to it reveals the greatness of your soul. When you find yourself on the ground, ask yourself, what is this situation showing me that I didn't see before? Maybe it's the need to change, to trust more, or even to ask for help. There is no shame in falling, just as there is no glory in staying down. True perseverance is born the moment you choose to get up again, even when you don't seem to have the strength. And when you take that step, you'll realize that the very act of going on is a miracle in itself. Loneliness. In such a connected world, why is it still so present? When everything around you seems silent, when there is no one left to give you answers, what is left? When I was alone in the desert, in prayer and reflection, I experienced something that many people still don't understand. In that empty space without human company, I was able to listen to my own soul and, more importantly, to hear the voice of the Father. The desert taught me that loneliness doesn't have to be a punishment, but an opportunity for growth. During those weeks in the desert, my mind and body were tested. The unrelenting heat, hunger, thirst, and lack of any physical comfort made me question many things. But it was there, in the absolute emptiness, that I found the clarity of my mission. The desert wasn't punishing me, it was preparing me. It was the pause my soul needed to connect with the greater truth. There, away from the applause, distractions, and expectations of others, I found strength in something I had never experienced before: myself and my connection to God. You may ask yourself, but how do you find strength in solitude? Isn't that a moment of weakness? It's just the opposite. When you find yourself in moments of solitude, it can be the perfect opportunity to stop and reflect on who you really are, without the interference of the world. What do you see when you look inside yourself? What do you feel when the noise around you stops? Many people fear solitude because they think it will reveal their weaknesses. In fact, solitude reveals our true strength, the strength that comes from within, from our essence, from our faith. I remember how heavy the thoughts of the world can be. The pressure to be somebody, to live up to expectations, to live up to what others expect of you. But solitude in the desert showed me that true strength doesn't come from the outside, but from the inside. It is in moments of silence that our souls find peace. Each of us has the ability to find the answer to our deepest questions, but to do so, we need the courage to face our own solitude, our own intimacy. Perhaps you're experiencing a moment of loneliness right now, feeling isolated, lost in your own feelings. Perhaps the voices around you are telling you to be more, to do more, to have more. But just like in the desert, it is in these moments that you are invited to find your true voice, the strength that comes from trusting that in the silence, God is near. And as you embrace solitude with faith, you will discover that it is not the end, but the beginning of a new understanding of yourself. In life, the process is often more important than the result. When you're going through difficulties, it can be hard to see a purpose in adversity. However, the greatest moments of transformation come when we accept the process of pain, effort, and perseverance. When I was in Palestine, I saw many people trying to avoid suffering, looking for shortcuts or quick fixes. Yet the great victories I witnessed were always accompanied by a commitment to face the difficulties, learn from them, and move forward, even when the path seemed arduous. I knew that real change wouldn't happen just because I said powerful words, but because people allowed themselves to go through a process of inner purification. Suffering is not something to be feared, but something we can use as a path to reach something deeper and truer. Like a tree that needs strong roots to grow, we too need challenges to keep us grounded in our faith and purpose. Think of those times when you felt broken, without the strength to carry on. That may have been when the Father began to shape you in ways you couldn't have imagined. The process, often painful, is necessary so that something new can be born within you. Sometimes the greatest trials we face are like the fire that purifies metal, removing impurities to reveal what is purest in our being. Without these tests, without these difficulties, we may never have the chance to discover our true strength. I have seen in many of you, and I see in many of you today, a tendency to resist this process. Perhaps you're trying to run away from the pain, to shy away from the lessons it brings. I understand that impulse. But I tell you, pain is not the end. It's the beginning of something new. When you finally surrender to the process, not as something to be avoided, but as something that is part of your growth, you begin to realize that victory is not just about what you accomplish out there, but about who you become as you go through the journey. So the next time you face a difficulty, don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed of the process. Embrace it, for it is on the path of struggle that the greatest transformations take place. The greatest heroes are not those who never fall, but those who get up, learn, and carry on with greater wisdom and strength. This process is a gift, not a punishment. And if you accept it with faith, you will find that it is the key to all that you truly seek. The human mind is of immense power. Everything you think, feel, and believe is reflected in your reality. When fear dominates, it occupies every corner of your mind and slowly creates barriers that limit your actions and choices. But when you choose to trust, when you choose to feed your mind with faith, the power that comes from within you becomes unbreakable. When I was among you, I realized that many of the difficulties you faced were not only external, but internal. The fruit of the thoughts and beliefs you nurtured day after day. It's natural for fear to arise in the face of adversity. It warns us of danger. It alerts us to the unknown. But as legitimate as fear may be, it shouldn't be the driving force in our lives. Confidence doesn't deny challenges. It gives us the courage to face them. The difference between living paralyzed by fear and living with confidence in something greater lies in the daily choice of where to focus our minds. Imagine that you are facing a great challenge. Fear says, "You won't succeed, you'll fail, better not try." But what if instead you listened to the inner voice that said, "You are stronger than you think, and with faith you can overcome anything"? When we choose to listen to confidence instead of fear, we make room for something transformative in our lives. It's not about ignoring what's around you. It's about not letting those challenges dictate your destiny. I've seen people who, even in the midst of pain, have chosen to trust. Even in the face of persecution, rejection, and even death, they continued to walk in faith, knowing that fear could not be greater than the strength they had in God. And that trust, that faith, not only led them to overcome, but also transformed them into a light for those around them. True strength comes not from trusting in our own human abilities, but from knowing that when we trust in the Father, He guides us, sustains us, and transforms us. Now, as you look at your own fears and challenges, ask yourself, what are you feeding in your mind and heart? Trust in God, or fear that limits your actions? When you choose to trust, a divine power begins to act in your life. And as you nurture that trust, you will realize that nothing is impossible, for true victory lies in overcoming doubt and following in faith. When you are faced with darkness, whether it's in the form of difficulty, fear, or even despair, it can seem as if there is no way out. The darkness seems to swallow up all that is good and beautiful, and peace seems like a distant dream. But I can tell you this: the light you carry within you is far more powerful than any shadow that may come your way. I've been in the desert, alone, and I've been visited by fear and doubt. There were moments when it seemed impossible to move forward, as if the forces of evil were trying to envelop me and silence me. But it was in those moments that I felt the Father closer than ever, illuminating my path with a light that doesn't come from the world, but from within each one of us. This light, which many still don't recognize, is the divine presence that dwells in the depths of your being, waiting to be accessed when we need it most. You may not realize it, but this light is always with you. especially when difficulties seem unbearable. It is the confidence that wells up within you even when you don't have the answers to the questions that life throws at you. Often the shadows around us make us forget our own essence. In the most difficult moments, it's easy to forget that we are made of light, and that light never goes out, even when it seems dim. I saw in so many people that even in the midst of loss and suffering, the divine light remained. And it wasn't just empty words or promises that sustained them, but a profound truth. The light within is an indestructible force. When you connect with it, you are no longer at the mercy of external circumstances. You become an expression of that light in the world, and in so doing you become a beacon for others, guiding them to peace and truth as well. Whenever you feel overwhelmed by the darkness, remember that the light within you never goes out. All you have to do is turn to it, trust it, and allow it to light the way, even if you can't see it clearly at the moment. The Father is within you, and He is your eternal light. As you allow that light to manifest, the shadows around you begin to disappear, for where there is light, there can be no darkness. In a world that values productivity and doing, it's easy to feel guilty about simply resting. The frenetic pace of modern life often convinces us that we must always be moving, always doing, always striving for more. But true perseverance lies not only in striving and continuing to strive, but also in knowing when to stop, when to relax, and trust that God, in His infinite mercy, will sustain our every step. I remember that on my journey, the disciples and those around me were often physically and spiritually exhausted. They worried about the future, what would happen next, and felt overwhelmed by the demands of daily life. It was then that He said to them, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." True peace comes not from the strength of our efforts, but from confidently turning our burdens over to the Father. Realizing that we can rest in His arms is a great act of faith. When we face difficulties, our natural impulse can be to fight with all our might, ignoring our limitations and trying to control everything around us. In my own life, however, I have learned that resting is not a weakness, but an act of wisdom. There is a deep peace when you allow yourself to stop and trust, knowing that the Father cares for you, that He won't abandon you, and that He knows the needs of your heart. When you allow Him to take control, you connect with a power that you don't have to fight because you have already won. Restoring yourself is essential. It's not about giving up the fight, but recognizing that there is a balance between action and surrender. In moments of fatigue and frustration, instead of being consumed by fear and anxiety, remember that you can rest in the arms of God. He is the source of all strength, and when you surrender to Him, you find rest not only for your body, but also for your soul. The serenity that comes from this rest brings the clarity needed to continue the journey with renewed energy and confidence. Perseverance, then, is not only in moving forward, it also lies in the stillness, in the moment when you allow yourself to stop and trust, knowing that each step you take is a safe one, guided by the hand of God. Rest is part of the journey, and by resting in Him, you are strengthened, renewed, and prepared to take the next step with faith. When you trust in God's care, you'll find that every burden you carry becomes lighter, because He shares it with you. How many times have you found yourself so caught up in the cares of daily life that your heart seemed heavy, as if you were carrying the weight of the world? In moments of discouragement, uncertainty, or even suffering, we can get lost in circumstances, expectations, and difficulties. But when our hearts are heavy, the answer lies in returning to what is essential, to what really matters. And what is essential? Love, faith, trusting that God is with you every step of the way, every moment. I saw people around me getting lost in worries and thoughts that took them away from their true purpose. They were so focused on immediate needs, on what was missing, on what wasn't there, that they didn't realize what they already had. Throughout my journey, I taught everyone that the kingdom of God is within everyone, and that true peace comes when we first seek that kingdom in our hearts. When you go back to the basics, You reconnect with your divine essence, with God's love that never fails, and with the certainty that He cares for you. In difficult times, we often forget that we are not alone. The pressures of everyday life, responsibilities, and frustrations can make the feeling of being lost or directionless overwhelming. But it's in these moments that we need to remember what really sustains our lives: love, compassion, and the truth that God places in our hearts. Sometimes stopping, taking a deep breath, and simply remembering the love that surrounds us can be all we need to restore our peace. I have walked among you and seen how the distractions of the world can weigh on hearts. The expectations of society, the comparisons, the pressure to be more, to have more, can create a burden you weren't meant to carry. True relief comes when you choose to step away from these pressures and return to what really matters: your relationship with God, trusting in His guidance and practicing love, both for yourself and for others. So when your heart is heavy, don't look for the solution in the world, in circumstances, or in the opinions of others. Go back to what is essential. Go back to the Father. He is the refuge where we find rest, the foundation on which we can lean regardless of what is happening around us. As you reconnect with divine love and the simplicity of your faith, you will find that worries and fears will diminish and peace will begin to fill your heart, restoring you to the journey that lies ahead. When you are going through a time of deep pain, it can be difficult to believe that there is any meaning to it. Pain often seems to be the end, the line we can't cross. But I want to invite you to look at pain from a new perspective. Every suffering, no matter how difficult, carries the seed of a new opportunity, a new beginning, a new way of living. When I was among you, I saw many people carrying immense pain, losses, frustrations, shattered dreams. I saw them paralyzed by pain, as if it were the final mark of their lives. But what I taught them, and what I want to share with you, is that pain is not the end. It can be the seed of something new, something that might never have happened without it. Pain, when lived with faith, can be the fertile ground on which true transformation flourishes. I remember going through the cross, an experience of indescribable pain and suffering. At that moment it seemed that everything was over. But out of that suffering came the greatest victory, the resurrection. Pain was not an obstacle, but a means by which true life could be manifested. When you find yourself in a moment of need, remember this: no matter how dark the night seems, there will always be a dawn. The seed of transformation is already planted within you, and sometimes it is pain that forces us to look inward and begin again from a stronger, wiser place, more in line with what God has prepared for us. Pain, in its essence, is a change that is happening within you. It's not punishment, it's an opportunity for growth, cleansing, and liberation. And like a tree that loses its leaves in the winter, it prepares to bear new fruit in the spring. When you face moments of pain, remember that this is just one chapter of your story, not the whole story. What you learn in that moment can be the key to a life that is even more abundant, more full of purpose, more full of light. Every pain brings with it the possibility of transformation. Instead of letting it consume you, see it as an invitation to reinvent yourself, to discover strengths within yourself that you didn't know you had. And when you truly allow yourself to live this process, you will see that pain becomes a fertile field where new dreams, new plans, and a new version of yourself can flourish. At many moments in life, you may feel as if you are carrying a burden alone, as if the struggles, worries, and sorrows are yours alone. The feeling of loneliness can be overwhelming, and it's easy to believe that when the world seems to be against you, there is no one there to support you. But I assure you, you are never alone. Even in the most difficult times, God is with you, and He is your strength, your light, and your comfort. During my journey, I've seen people feel abandoned and believe they are helpless. But if you walk with God, no matter how big the obstacle or how dark the road, He will always be by your side, guiding your every step. True endurance is not about fighting alone, but about trusting that you have a companion who will never leave you, who will never forsake you. And that trust is what gives you the strength to keep going, even when everything seems to be falling apart. It sounds simple, but the truth is profound. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You have a Father who cares about every step you take. I remember when the disciples were in the boat facing a storm. They were afraid, alone in their fear. But when they saw me walking on the water toward them, they knew they were no longer alone. I met them in the midst of the storm, and it is in the midst of your own storm that God meets you. True perseverance comes from trusting that no matter what you are facing, God is with you. He not only sees you, He strengthens you and guides you. Sometimes trouble blinds us to this reality. But when you allow His presence to occupy the space of your heart, you begin to feel a peace that transcends any circumstance, and that peace gives you the strength to go on. The journey may be difficult, but with God by your side, you will always have the strength to continue. Remember, you are never alone. Even in the darkest of nights, there is a light within you, and that light is God, who dwells in your heart. He is your strength, your courage, and your hope. When you surrender to this truth, you realize that perseverance is not a lonely battle, but a journey for two, you and God. The journey of perseverance is not easy, but it is where true transformation takes place. In every fall, in every pain, in every challenge, there is an opportunity for you to grow, for you to connect with the divine power that dwells in your heart. No matter what life brings you, remember that the light within you is greater than any darkness, and you are never, ever alone. God walks with you, supporting your every step and strengthening your every move. If you trust this, there is no obstacle that can stop you. You are stronger than you think, and victory lies in the courage to keep going, always with faith. May you find peace in your heart. May divine light guide your every step, and may your journey be filled with love, trust, and true perseverance. You are ready to rise, to overcome, and to live the truth that God has prepared for you.